What is going on, y'all? It is your boy QMG, aka QuaMonstarG, and welcome to the first episode of Q&K Talk Wrestling. Yes, sir. We, myself, and my good friend Key, who y'all will be introduced to in a minute, are going to be talking about, what we are interested in wrestling this week. It can be a range of anything. It can be WWE, strictly the AEW, or anything else strictly. It could be a mosh posh. We can just even give you opinions on past wrestling stuff on here. But basically, this is now your new favorite one-stop shop for wrestling content, and we are black. So now you don't have to worry about listening to the same three dudes over and over again on your wrestling opinions if you don't want to. But in any case, let's get into it. Miss Key, introduce yourself.
What up, what up, what up? My name's Key. I am 28 years old. I have been a long-term wrestling fan since like 2006 when I was about to go into high school. And my first ever favorite wrestler was Randall Keith Orton, RKO, Legend Killer, whatever you want to call him. But I'm currently here for the tribal chief himself, Roman Reigns.
Yep. And is there any type of feud storyline that you like the most about in wrestling over your tenure as being a wrestling fan?
My favorite thing so far was Randy versus Edge. Like, they have had such a long term history, and the way they have played this story and have they played the storyline out that they have had, it's just from beginning to end, you're like, wow, this is really good. And because I remember back when they were rated RKO, I was always like, nah, they'll never turn each other. I clearly was wrong, but it happens. And I think another feud of mine is definitely the current one they have with Sasha and Bailey. I have been waiting for this for the longest, and I mean longest time, because I don't care if anybody gets mad at me. It is what it is. I always felt they stuck Sasha. They stuck, yeah, they stuck Sasha with Bailey to try to see if she could, get some kind of momentum. But even afterwards, it still didn't work. So I think they finally realized, you know what, screw it. Let's just have them two fight.
Oh yeah, definitely some bangers right there. I gotta say, my favorite storylines over the tenure of me watching wrestling. I gotta give it first things first. Give current props to Roman Reigns and Jey Uso.
Most
Their
definitely.
their feud was phenomenal. Some great storyline, acting, and in ring stuff I've seen in a very long time. Another one, and this might be a controversial pick, but I gotta give it up to the and you know what, not even controversial because one of them is absolutely a very much beloved one. But I gotta say, the Road to WrestleMania 35. Wait, yeah, that was the one in New York 35. The Road to WrestleMania 35 main event storyline: Becky versus Ronda and Charlotte, Seth versus Brock, and Kofi Mania.
Yeah,
Those I
yes.
gotta say, like the problems, like even with there were some major problems with at least two of the three, and Kofi Mania isn't one of those two.
I mean,
They,
I like the scene where they were all fighting and the cops arrested them, because it was nice to see white women actually get consequences. But anyways, going
yeah,
on.
I definitely feel like Becky's Road to WrestleMania arc did kind of lose the plot a little bit too early, and I do wish they wouldn't have tried to shoehorn Charlotte or the SmackDown Women's title into that, because Ronda versus Becky was in and on itself was compelling enough, but I still felt like it did a good job in getting the feel good moment that everyone was so certain that at least one of those feel good moments weren't going to happen. And personally speaking, I was all for Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar and the reasoning behind that. Babyface Seth, that's a hot topic and a hot take to like that run. But I feel like his reasoning of being the guy to get one over on Brock and finally bring the main title back to Raw on a consistent basis. It was very compelling. I like the way they structured that match in and of itself, with how Seth being, conniving and being the architect really to get the quick win over Brock. Fun fact, everybody, for those who don't know, Brock Lesnar's weakness is a low blow. If you can low blow Brock Lesnar, you have increased
Why
your
are you
chances
doing
of
that
victory.
so early? We just started. Why are you doing this so early?
I mean, what? When Taker was facing Lesnar, he
Well,
hit him with low blows, and he ended up winning one of those matches. When Seth fought Brock, hit him with a low blow, ended up winning. When Daniel was facing Brock at Survivor Series, he didn't get the upper hand until he hit him with a low blow. The
I just
low
want to
blow.
say, I just want to say, if Brock Lesnar ever hears this, I didn't say it. He did.
And I'll
I
say,
said nothing. I said nothing.
Brock, you better have a cup on, because have a 50. I have now have a 50% chance of weakening you more so than most of your opponents. But in any case,
Also, I hate to interrupt, but
that run was pretty
I
good. But of course,
actually
Kofi Mania.
that's exactly what I was about to say because I didn't think about that until you mentioned Kofi Mania. That one is my all time favorite story
Yeah,
because it has taken him so long to get to that point. And we seen him, come to these close moments where we think he's gonna get that chance, or going to finally get a match, and it's like, nope, sorry. So for them to finally fully go through and be like, you know what, maybe this guy can be a champ. It was emotional. I remember seeing all my friends like reacting on it, crying their eyeballs out somewhere at like amusement parks, crying. I was over here freaking crying my damn self, really. So it was just a really good moment to see. Because at one point, we really thought that he was finally going to have the title. But, some backstage things that I won't mention happened, and it got ruined. So after that, it was like, okay, are they ever going to push this man? Then he got put in a New Day, and it was like, okay, yeah, he's doing good, but we still want that title. So for him to finally get that title was like great. Because if you look at it, Kofi has had so much adversity, not just from the fans saying, oh, he has to be serious, oh, he has to do that, he has to do that, but from people backstage too that are his own skin folk. I don't want to name names, but you know what I know.
oh yeah,
And I
the
know.
oh yeah, most definitely. That was that whole lead up, that was amazing. That was phenomenal. I mean, no shade. Mustafa Ali is my guy. I really rocks with Mustafa Ali as a person with his positive messages, and as a
Almost that.
wrestler, he's dynamic. And personally, I know people who got a little problem with Retribution. There's some haters, but even then,
True.
his promos that he's been giving with Retribution shows that he should have been gotten a
He should.
significant push.
No, you're right. No, definitely Mustafa should have definitely been had that title.
Yeah,
But
and
again, it's like as a black person,
yeah,
we don't have that much representation.
yeah, and it's like, I hate that he went down with that injury, but it definitely finally let the WWE finally go, yeah, put the title, give Kofi this run, give Kofi
Hmm.
this push. And I'm glad you brought up the skin folk not being your kinfolk, because ironically enough, Daniel Bryan behind the scenes was one of the main people pushing for Kofi to get the win at WrestleMania. He
And the
understood that a lot better than some of these other folks
And that's
who,
so wild because if you even think about it in hindsight, Daniel Bryan is more supportive towards not even just Kofi, but Bianca, Naomi, Sasha, etc., etc. He's more supportive than the people you would think would be more supportive, but they're just busy trying to nitpick at every single thing they do. Once again, I'm
right.
not going to name names, but if y'all on Twitter, y'all know who I'm talking about.
All right. But let's hop into some current event. Let's start off with what arguably is the biggest news coming out of Monday, and that is the current situation with Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, and the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Sorry
Why
for
did you do it like that?
my horrible Scottish accent. But for those who
That
don't know,
sucked.
we're thank
That
you for the
sucked.
honesty.
That was awful.
Thank
Do that again.
But yeah, we are a week removed from Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. A lot of, well, some like a lot. We had some basic matches, but the major matches definitely delivered in both quality and storyline wise. And as far as Monday nights go, Randy Orton captured his 14th WWE Championship after shockingly beating Drew McIntyre, who I felt was the second person, not since Kofi Kingston has a first-time WWE champion, has had such a great run in my eyes. And I felt like Drew was primed to be one of the guys to have this, at least carry it towards Rumble. I was not expecting him to drop it, especially in a feud where he's had the upper hand on Randy. But nonetheless, the Legend Killer, the Apex Predator, won his 14th championship. Can't sell Randy any shortness because he has been a consistent MVP of WWE product, especially during the pandemic era, whether it was no crowd to a little bit of the crowd, and now in the Thunderdome, which they don't need any heroes there apparently, from what I've been told. But yeah, so at Monday this past week, he was a guest on a Moment of Bliss with Alexa Bliss. Now, this was a special edition of it because now, for those who don't know, Alexa Bliss is now thoroughly enthralled with Bray Wyatt and the Fiend and the Firefly Funhouse. So this had a very, very, very palpable, significant ulterior motive to it because not only was it just trying to set up another encounter between Drew and Randy, but now you have the Fiend who is out looking for a measure of vengeance against Randy Orton, like he's been looking for against a plethora of opponents he's faced since the Fiend materialized, I can say, then from the ether and started attacking all of Bray's past enemies in efforts to change them completely. First it was first it was Finn, and then Finn became the Prince in NXT, changed him completely. Then it was Seth who got changed into the Messiah. Then we had Daniel Bryan, who was one of the very first people to get one over on Bray and try to disrupt the Wyatt family, and Fiend clapped him. And then of course one of my favorite matches of the year so far, and this year has been a very, very long one, the Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania between him and Cena. He got his revenge against Cena, which then led into a feud with, I want to know this. Yeah, who was next? Oh yeah, Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman, which was a coming of full circle, and then that's how Alexa got involved because he and her have a relationship, and then became more and more enthralled. His claws got deeper and deeper into her psyche until
Yep.
she finally broke and joined the flock, if you will. But then the big dog, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, made his return and took the Universal title back from Bray, who had won it during his feud with Braun Strowman. And
Amen.
then WWE decided to just drop the draft out of nowhere, and then Fiend got sent.
Which was so
Fiend and
stupid.
Bray.
That was so
the Fiend,
stupid.
the Fiend. It was really stupid. Like they were clearly setting seeds. A quick aside, setting seeds for Bray and Roman to feud, so they could
Exactly.
finally
And
like
it
a
did.
brand new feud that would end it because for those who haven't been catching on, when the Fiend faces you, something changes in you, right? And if Roman's coming back as a bad guy, then Fiend, it'll be a different dichotomy because how can the Fiend stop this Roman who isn't naive anymore, who has no concrete morals outside of what he deems is appropriate for his family, which is anything, as we've seen.
Which
So
we'll be getting into later on.
yes, but yeah,
Just
but yeah, they randomly shipped him off to Raw with Alexa, and then it looked like they were going to do something cool with Retribution. But then now it turns out they're going to do something cooler with Randy because, in my opinion, Randy and Bray has had
extremely
Rand.
long history.
Yes, and in my opinion, you can trace the Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt feud to the quote unquote true downfall of the original iteration of Bray Wyatt before he spun his wheels with Matt Hardy for a little bit and then ushered in the Fiend era, because it was Randy who slithered his way back into the into the Wyatt family. It was Randy who caused dissension between Bray and Luke Harper, which eventually led to Luke completely being done with the Wyatt family. It was Randy
And
who
done with WWE altogether, but you know.
that's a yeah. And then it was Randy who finally showed his true colors, desecrated the grave site of Sister Abigail, and ended up taking Bray's title at in a pretty disappointing match at WrestleMania. But we won't get into that. And Bray never got an opportunity to win that title back. Most people forget their rematch was at Extreme Rules, but it was when they were on separate brands, and Jinder Mahal was already penciled in for a title match, so they just made it non-title for some reason, which
That
ended
happened
up
this year?
that happened that happened 2 years ago. Can you believe it?
Sheesh, 2020 has been so long. Y'all, I'm sorry. I really thought that happened this year. Good grief.
So
Ugh.
yeah, so yeah. While Drew is certainly still in the mix to regain his title, Bray and Randy seems to be the A feud moving forward on Raw. Key, what is your thoughts?
I'm actually here for it because originally I thought it was going to come like a full circle thing when Randy wanted the title. I thought it was going to be like, okay, so they're probably going to build it up for Edge to come back, and da 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 da. They'll settle that, and then Edge probably win the title again, whatever. But now, after you explained to me what you explained, it's like, in hindsight, that's very true because Bray didn't get his, fair chance to get the title back. But question is, what's going to happen to Randy after this? Because, like you said, Finn became this, Seth became that, Daniel did that. So, what is the route with Randy? Because he's been heel, he's been face, he's been heel, he's been face, he's been heel, he's been face. What way are they going to go with him? That's what I want to know. How are y'all going to do this and pull it off so it makes sense?
Yeah, because I feel like I feel the same way, Key. With this, it's always something that was, something that was either taking them back to a pre-established. Yeah, it's for example when he fought Seth Rollins. Seth was a babyface, and he was floundering at that point as Universal Champion because he said some things about Will Ocean Spray, Osprey, that people didn't agree with, even though it would soon turn out that Will Ospreay wasn't really up and up himself. We'll
Seth
let
was
you.
always right.
He was, but we'll let the viewers decide for themselves if Seth was
Viewers,
always right.
if you guys have ever followed Ocean Spray on Twitter, you know Seth was right. That's all.
But yeah, in any case, that happened, and then the Fiends beat him, and then Seth became. He went from being the Monday Night Rollins good guy to being the Monday Night Messiah, who doing the during all of his time as a babyface, accomplished all of these great things, and then when he became a bad guy, he was able to twist it into something evil, if you
And I
will.
just and I just want to say this whole, I don't want to call it a cult persona, but in a way it is a cult persona. I just want to say that's how you actually freaking do a cult persona. Thank you.
Ooh, feeling spicy.
Just saying.
But in any case, with all of this happening, with Daniel Bryan, when before he really got into it with the Fiend, he had dropped the Yes Movement, focused more on the planet, teamed up with Eric Rowan, was a bad guy, and then after Eric Rowan framed him for the attempted murder of Roman Reigns, that's when Daniel Bryan was starting to come back towards the good side. And then when the Fiend firmly set his sights on him, that's when he 100% brought back the Yes Movement, brought everything back. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Fiend does it with Drew and with Randy, because when it comes to that, you don't have to do that per se. You don't have to try to reboot their personalities, because you can argue that Drew and Randy right here, right now, are at their best, most dominant selves. So it's not necessary to reboot their character. But then again, that's where the storyline twists happen. So it might be stuff we don't see coming. Key, what do you think?
I actually think you're absolutely right on that because with the other feuds the Fiend has had, it's kind of more so, I don't want to say predictable, but we knew the route that it was going. We knew that, eventually somebody was going to turn heel or face just by the, pattern. But with Randy and Drew, it's kind of the case like it is with Roman. They're at their best right now. So how are you guys going to, keep the pattern going with the Fiend and not lose the momentum?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, when it comes down to Survivor Series for the past 4 years since the brand split, there has been at least one or two significant title changes in the lead up to the show, specifically in the on the go home week, which is, for those who don't know, the week before the pay per view. So in 2016, in the initial brand split, you had Dolph Ziggler losing the IC title to The Miz, which changed the matchup from Dolph Ziggler versus Sami Zayn with the IC title on the line, and Sami Zayn was on Raw at the time, to The Miz versus Sami Zayn with the IC title on the line. Then in 2017, when they were doing champions versus champions, they had the WWE title change between AJ Styles and um, Jinder Mahal, because WWE was not trying to have Brock Lesnar versus Jinder Mahal, because that would have
Did you
been
just call him
trash.
Jinder Mahal?
Jinder, I said Jinder. I didn't say Ginger, and that'd been rude and disrespectful. But A, yeah, but AJ ended up winning that title off of Jinder, so that changed the matchup, as well as Natalya dropping the SmackDown Women's title to Charlotte on that go home episode. So it changed the match from to, Alexa Bliss versus Natalya, I'm sorry, versus Alexa Bliss versus Charlotte. I don't know why I said versus. I meant to say to Alexa Bliss versus Charlotte. The next year, there wasn't a major. No, last year. No, yeah, 2018 it was, because Daniel Bryan beat AJ Styles for the WWE Championship, then changing it from Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles Part 2 to the dream match that everyone has wanted, apparently, myself included, so I don't know why I said apparently. Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar, champion versus champion. And then that same year, even though it wasn't a title change that changed the situation, it was most certainly a injury, because Becky Lynch was supposed to be Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, but then Nia Jax cold cocked Becky and gave her most iconic moment as a professional wrestler, which meant it had to be Charlotte versus Ronda, which led to the formation of the most dominant three-women faction in history, the Shield. Or am I talking about my WWE 2K19 universe mode? I'll let you be the judge. And some tag team titles changed in them 2 years too, but I forget who exactly held those titles, so I'm not gonna really get into it. And yeah, that has been the situation for the past 4 years. Last year, not so much, because all three of the major titles were defended at Survivor Series, and the major matches were NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown, so they really couldn't change titles like that beforehand, even though I'm pretty sure they did at least one of them. I'm not entirely sure. Don't entirely remember it all that well. But in any case, that's been the muddled history of it. So, Keith, if any title was to change between now and Survivor Series, thus changing any of the champion versus champion matchups, which one do you think it is, and what would be your enthusiasm level for that?
I sincerely think the only one that probably would change between now and Survivor Series is definitely the WWE title. Because again, we can tell this is going to be Bray versus Randy, but we don't know the outcome of it. So, not knowing and not, having to guess where it's gonna go gives me that little bit of excitement that I had once upon a time. Because if you notice, in the past years, WWE has become kind of predictable with some of their storylines. So it's like, okay, whatever. I know this is gonna happen. I don't care. But with Randy and the Fiend, we don't know what can happen with this. So if it does change, if the titles change and Fiend wins, I'm excited because what does that leave for Randy? What's gonna happen with Randy? Is he gonna stay how he is? Is he gonna turn? What is like where we're going with this?
Yeah, I agree. Even though I can see them doing a triple threat where Drew could theoretically get his W back over Randy, so you protect the Fiend from getting a pinfall loss, and you give Drew his chance to win the championship back and face off against Roman in the at Survivor Series, which it would be a great match in and of itself. But um, I definitely think that it will end up being Bray Wyatt. So therefore, you kill two birds with one stone, or at least you maim one bird, and then you just go ahead and kill the other bird, and whichever bird you think is the maimed and killed one is up to you. But I feel like you can start planting the seeds for the long-term Randy versus Bray feud, and then you can circle back to the not botched. Well, we can say it was botched. Bray Roman feud that had to be dropped because of the draft. So I think that's the likelihood of it, and I agree. I will add the SmackDown Women's Championship could, not saying that it will, and I definitely don't want it to, but there's a very good chance that the SmackDown Women's Championships could be dropped. Like they could they can find some way to screw over Sasha, because for those who watched SmackDown this past week, Carmella has made her intentions known to do something that is only something she could do, and that could mean a plethora of things, but more than likely means screwing Sasha out of her championship reign very early on, thus setting up a title feud between the two of them.
And the thing
So
is, and the thing of it is, us viewers know they love screwing Sasha over. So once again, that's one of those things we're looking for the best, but know the worst will happen.
right. Also, any of the both tag team titles can be swapped out, even though there's literally no major tag team that I see really like being a main event caliber opponent for the other team. I feel like New Day versus Street Profits is a dream match, and having that be a marquee match above all else is very good. We don't know how the SmackDown women's team is going to materialize, and at this moment, both SmackDown and Raw teams look pretty on point. So, you know, I feel like definitely the WWE Championship has like a 99% chance of changing hands between now and Survivor Series. And I'd say the SmackDown Women's Championship has an unfortunate 60% chance when it shouldn't even be that. So, yeah. But speaking on SmackDown, well, before we get to SmackDown, rather, I'm going to just pop in on some things that happen elsewhere around the globe in the WWE. So first things first, Halloween Havoc on NXT happened. Didn't catch all of it. I caught some highlights and watched a couple of the matches. Haven't been really, not necessarily failing NXT, but kind of been putting NXT a little bit on the back burner. Not too many storylines interest me at the moment, but the action is always amazing. Want to touch on three things, and then I'll toss it to you, Key. One, Raquel Gonzalez and Rhea Ripley are still fine as cat hair, and I am open to an open marriage, specifically where y'all call the shots and I answer to y'all. So that's just that out there. Secondly, the House of Terrors match between Dexter Lumis and Cameron Grimes was hilarious. It was hilarious. Cameron Grimes is a funny dude. He's very funny, and it definitely captured the Friday the 13th apex type of stalker thriller horror movie that you're used to in the cheesy way. And three, Poppy must really be a WWE fan because every time they ask her to do an Io Shirai entrance, I almost never, ever, ever expect her not to show up. She's always there. She's always there to perform. And so, much respect to you, Poppy. Shout outs to the GOAT Io Shirai. She has been killing the game. Your go, Key.
I just want to say I didn't get to see Halloween Havoc like I had wanted to, but I will say this: welcome back, Pete Dunne. Yay!
All right, so now we're gonna cap everything off with SmackDown and the major things happening on SmackDown. First, let's just get the obvious out of the way. Next week on SmackDown is the rematch between Bayley and Sasha. Should be a cracking old good time, but like we said, there might be some chicanery happening, so be prepared, as they say in the Lion movie. But there's two major things that happened on SmackDown. One good storytelling, one bad storytelling. And let's get to the bad first. Let's just get that out of the way. So, for the past year, Rey Mysterio has been feuding with Seth Rollins, and then Dominic got involved. So then it became the Mysterio family versus Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. And then through a lot of trials and tribulations and eyeballs being damaged, Murphy finally said, no mas, he's done. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't want to be involved, which led to him and Seth falling out. All the while, 19-year-old Aaliyah Mysterio began to take a liking to Murphy, began to feel sorry for Murphy. And it got a lot of awkward, a lot of cringe, you know. At first, people were like, oh, they're just going to be friends. WWE isn't going to make it a romance angle. And then this past Friday, it became a romance angle. An unambiguous, no getting around it, no trying to deny it, a flat foot romance angle. 19-year-old Aaliyah Mysterio kissing 30-something-year-old Murphy.
41.
Uh-huh.
41.
41. Jesus, I didn't even know that dude was so flipping old. But yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with the energy we created in the studio today.
Yeah, that was whack. That was whack for a litany of reasons. Chief among them is that.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's not 41. He's 32. I don't know why it said 41, but either way, this is bad.
This is bad. Very, very bad. It's Aaliyah can't even drink in most states. All she can do is smoke a pack of Newports. And it's weird. It's weird. Right. It's weird. It's gross. It's whack. It's grooming. It's grooming. And the bad thing about it is one of the many bad things about it is they're supposed to be. I'm definitely gonna let you get into it, but it's like they're trying to portray them as baby faces in this scenario, and there's nothing baby faced about a 31-year-old dude being okay being in a relationship with a 19-year-old, especially considering that A, she's 19 damn years old. B, you've been emotionally scarring her family for the past 10 months now, 11 months as we enter November. And C, she's 19 years old. 19
bloody years old.
And I'm gonna let you get into it because there's some deeper reasoning on why this is garbage. But there's literally no way they can pull themselves out of this unless this was all some elaborate scheme by the Mysterios to ultimately punish Seth and Murphy. And even then, that doesn't work because it doesn't punish Seth at all. And then it barely punishes Murphy, who wasn't even the ringleader. And then third, you still sent your 19-year-old daughter to potentially be in a romantic situation with this 32-year-old dude. And it's weird. It's gross. And it's typical WWE completely missing the mark on how to handle stuff like this. But Key, enough of me talking. You get into it.
All right, so here's my biggest reason why I hate this whole storyline. Like Q said, it is grooming. And if you guys have followed me on my Twitter at my Twitter at Key Levon, then you know there was a recent situation this past summer where a Twitter user was helping some boys tell their story about how, and I'm gonna say his name, Velveteen Dream was grooming them when they were 15 and 16 years old. And the only reason this man is not in jail right now is because age of consent is 16 in Florida. That's the only reason he ain't in the jail cell right now. So for WWE to literally spit in these victims' faces, that's what they're doing. They're spitting in these victims' faces. They don't care that this man was out here saying this, that, and the third, sending this, that, and the third to these freaking teenage boys. They were teenage boys. That they don't care. Like, we've seen Hunter talk about, well, we did all we could do. No, you didn't. At most, you could have fired him. At most. But now, all of a sudden, I guess they decided it's like the heat got too much because we haven't seen him on NXT or whatever. But still, this storyline did not need to happen because it's a big F you. It's an extreme big F you. They have seen how this whole past summer there has been constant stories of wrestlers being outed as, abusers, rapists, whatever. So for WWE to think, hey, let's put this barely legal girl in a storyline with this grown ass man, what could go wrong? They basically say, hey, fuck everybody that's a victim. That's basically what they're saying. And I don't care for it. I really don't care for it. So even if she was like okay with it and Ray was okay with it, whatever. Point being is this shouldn't be something everybody has to be okay with whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree 110%. This sets a bad precedent, especially like as you said, this type of scenario with the Velveteen Dream and others was rampant, not just in WWE, but the entire professional wrestling community.
The wrestling community as a whole, one
Yeah.
by one, you've seen people were coming out with stories. Even some people that I know personally were saying, hey, I got assaulted by this person, or I had this happen to me. And I can only imagine how they honestly feel seeing this story on TV by this big company that swears that, it's all about fans and all about this and all about that. How much are you about fans? Because if you were about fans, you wouldn't be doing this shit.
Yeah, it most certainly. It definitely reeks of just not giving a damn. It reeks of it. It reeks of halfway crooking that you say one thing, you say you're going to take it seriously, and then at the very least emulate it. And then not even at the very least, because they didn't do that. They absolutely did the most because he's not like you said, Velveteen Dream isn't fired because it just so happens that in the shitty state of Florida, that's the age of consent. So it's garbage. It's whack to see, and it's sending all of the wrong messages. At least back in 2005 when Ray and Eddie were fighting over the custody of Dominic.
He was a baby. That was like, a typical story.
That's a typical wrestling story. That not just a wrestling story. That's the shit you see on Maury and Springer.
Exactly. It's typical bullshit that, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. We know it's not really his kid, da da da.
And even like in the worst case scenario, it's not like, oh, Eddie's gonna abuse Dominic in any way. Like, no, it's not. It's just typical wrestling schmaz. But this is what we like to call taking it from one area and going into the next. This is going from just wrestling shit, and now it's going into uncomfortable real life stuff where it's hard to make a lot, it's hard to accept it as anything other than entertainment just because of how rampant it is in real life. You cannot suspend your disbelief enough to not think about this storyline. But yeah, we are in agreement that this is straight up trash.
And the thing of it is, in a nutshell, it wouldn't have been so horrible if there was at least some kind of action taken against Velveteen Dream. It wouldn't have been so horrible. At least give him a damn fine or classes or whatever. Then I could have been like, well, it still sucks, but it is what it is. The fact that they literally said he got away with this because of the stupid age consent law.
Yeah, that's all of
It's
this is
it's like,
jacked up.
okay, he admitted to being a pervert, yet y'all are okay with it.
Yeah.
Now you decided, you know what? Let's take what this happened and make it into a storyline. And I truly and sincerely feel for Buddy and I feel for Leah because I know they are not comfortable with any of this. It's like I know they agreed to it or whatever, but deep down they aren't comfortable with this.
Yeah. But let's jump to the A story. Let's jump to something a little bit more positive. And by positive I mean hurting your family members physically and mentally so they join your hurtful efforts.
Sounds
Yay!
like my family reunions.
Sounds like mine too. But in any case, we jump to Roman Reigns' saga as the tribal chief. We join the new, well, not even the new, we joined the WWE Universal Champion after he firmly secured the W at Hell in a Cell in the first ever Hell in a Cell I Quit match, unless you played a WWE 2K14 where you can make an I Quit match and put it inside Hell in a Cell, but that doesn't count. And effectively, at per the stipulation, when Roman won, Jay either fell in line under his boot heel and acknowledged him as a tribal chief and not questioned authority, or him, his wife, Jimmy, Naomi, they kids, Jay's kids, and anyone that follows in that lineage will be thrown out of the Anoa'i family. And so, seeing as Jay lost, Roman gave him the ultimatum. By the end of the night, you either take the oath, acknowledge him, fall in line, or be thrown out of the family. Now, the opening promo, as per all of the promos that have been in the storyline, was straight fire. The emotion was there. Just on a quick aside, that Hell in a Cell match towards the end had me on the verge of man tears, and so that just shows how much drama and effort these guys put into making the storyline really really work. And the opening promo that kicked off SmackDown was certainly still in that same ballpark. Seeing Roman just so nonchalant, so affirmative, a matter of fact, because he was right. He got what he wanted out of Jay. He got him to quit. So all he needs him to do is finish the whole bow and be done with it. And Jay, the rage, the anger, the disappointment in Roman and himself, and the realization of everything sinking in, him trying to still stay strong and say how he didn't, how Roman didn't beat him, how he didn't have it in him, then trying to justify Roman's actions by saying it's the title, and then the recognizing that Roman had to use the one person that would make Jay even, utter those words, "I quit" under any circumstances, and that's his brother's well-being being on the line. And it was high drama, and then Roman just so cool, calm, and collected, chill, condescending, and yet still having not forgiveness but openness to still have Jay join, still giving him that olive branch to join up even after everything that he's done to Jay, as if nothing changed, because in Roman's mind, nothing changed. It just happened the way it was supposed to happen, the way Roman knew it was going to happen. It just took longer. And you can feel that condescending while still trying to give off an air of we're still family, but also reminding Jay that he didn't win, and also telling Jay that he is alone, that the family supports Roman. So there really isn't an option of any more type of uprising or resistance. So all of that, and then Jay saying he hates him, hates Roman, and then Roman turning it around and saying that very well may be, but he still loves Jay. And then just the pat, it was just so high drama. Key, what did you think of that specific opening segment?
First of all, I want to say I have been wanting this Roman for a very, very long time. So, Merry freaking Christmas to me. It's finally happened. But I did not expect the ending. I didn't think it would be so soon, per se. I thought it'd be, a little while before Jay came to realization about everything and, join sides with Roman or whatever. But I didn't think it would go this soon. However, I'm very intrigued now. What does this mean? Like, is the family story over? What's going to happen next? Because call it what you want, call me delusional, whatever. I still feel at some point this is going to have Roman versus Rock. I don't care. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I want it. So now it's like, well, what's Roman's next opponent, basically?
Let's get into the ending of everything, because after Jey Uso pulled ahead over Daniel Bryan in the Survivor Series team qualifying matchup, without hesitation and without even a hint of some sort of backstab or anything, he said, he understands. He acknowledged Roman as a tribal chief. And then he proceeded to beat down Daniel Bryan, something fierce. Uso splashed him through the announce table. And then after Smackdown went off the air, there was some extra footage of him knocking Daniel Bryan off of the stretcher he put him on. And, I figured it was going to come to a head. It wasn't going to last too much longer, whether it would have been this week, next week, Jay initially backing down, and then it turns out that he never really did to try to get a one-up on Roman's next opponent. I knew Jay was going to be joining with the family so they can start the bloodline proper. I'll say this. For me personally, it all makes sense. It all makes sense because just rewatching it over and over again and trying to analyzing it, you can tell Jay knows he lost. Like, there's no more fight to win, and the one important thing to Jay is family. That's why he wanted to be considered the tribal chief. That's why he wanted to be the head of the table. And if the family doesn't side with him, then what's the point of fighting against Roman? If the family obviously believe in Roman and not you, then you have to fall in line. And we know how much, and Jay said it himself, he quit not on his behalf, but on his brother's behalf. Now imagine that for his wife or his kids or his sister-in-law, Naomi, and anyone in his family he'd quit for. So if he quit for Jimmy and the rest of his family is on Roman's side, then he got to quit for them too. He got to do what he got to do to stay in that family, to support his family, and to understand that that's the new normal. Because at the end of the day, there was lines that the Usos weren't going to cross with Roman, but Roman was willing to cross for them. And that just plays into the whole, brings everything full circle, is that in Roman crossing that line with the Uso against Jay, that in turn forced the Usos to switch up their code and made, now at least Jay, for example, as of right now, we can assume Jimmy, but it's not explicitly said Jimmy. But now the Usos are just simply going to apply what they were doing on their own now back to Roman, because there is no resistance. There isn't anyone in the family that, at this moment takes ill with what Roman is doing. And so what's the point in fighting it? What's the point of denying it? What's the point of going to war with this person and potentially putting your immediate family on the outs against somebody that still wants you to be a part of that family? You just got to fall in line and do what he wants you to do. And to Jimmy at this point, what's more important, his pride or his family? At the end of the day, Jay still chose his family over himself. He still made the sacrifice, but now the sacrifice is benefiting someone else and not him. And that is what makes this so compelling and made all of this still make sense for these characters. And then for Roman, He's feeling like the constant thing is why Roman is acting like this. It's not why. It's why hasn't he been acting like this sooner? Roman has put everything on his back, not just for the WWE, but for his family. And you can argue that despite what certain people on the internet might say, he's never really gotten his due diligence credit wise. He might have the accomplishments, but never the credit for it. It's always some, BS reason. Oh, they wanted to push Roman over an indie guy. Oh, they wanted to push Roman over, this new guy catching flame. Oh, he's not compelling as a babyface. Change him sooner. Do this, that, or the third. And so Roman, and now it's and I feel like now it's Roman has what really changed it was when Roman announced his cancer scare, and then people finally started to realize, no, this is a human being, and we gotta Roman might not be here as long as we think he is, so let's change our mentality, and that's when it started to change. But I can see for Roman, it's like, why did it have to come to that? Why did it have to come to me almost dying and not being here for y'all to appreciate me? And then looking at it from the company standpoint too, like I left so I could live. And the first thing y'all do is y'all to give away my title opportunity. And then the guys who pick up the slack can't even deliver like I can. So it's like Roman is now at the point where he's like, you got to acknowledge my greatness or you're going to pay the price. So you can see that logic as well, because he's tired of not getting the credit. He's tired of not being looked at as the face of the WWE that he has now become. And he especially wants his family to recognize that. And I think that's now what's going to be driving. Now, to your Rock point, that's absolutely going to happen. When? I don't know. But all I'll say is that no matter what happens with The Rock, there is still one more challenger. One more challenger in the wings that might be the true hero to the story. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I wish it was more of his family members in WWE a little bit. Like, because I know he got a couple more cousins that wrestle in the indies, so it would be kind of interesting to see, like, I guess, I don't call it a trial, but I guess that's what you want to call it, like, them go through the trial phase to see who has the guts to stand with him or whatever. And, who would be the one to be like, you know what, screw that, I'm not kissing her ass. But,
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, all of this stuff makes a ridiculous amount of sense storyline wise. None of this feels forced or out of left field or anything. All of this makes the most sense. But Keith, do you have any closing remarks about anything in the wrestling world today?
actually, I do. I really do. Um, so to a certain, I like to call him tap dancing super coon that has nothing else to do but comment and criticize every single thing a black woman wrestler does. Don't be mad because it's not back in the day where, black people shut up and just took what they could get. And, they're actually sticking up for themselves. Maybe, just maybe, if you did that, you'd have more title reigns. But what do I know?
Right. Not everybody should take getting pedigreed in a 30-minute match where you're painted to be a thug and a stereotypical black man, and then take
Mm-hmm.
that one loss and then doesn't see another world heavyweight title opportunity for another 3 years. And that's only after he becomes a comedy heel. Not everyone has to take that path. Some actually want to get
Exactly.
their flowers at their best and not when they've kowtowed to other things. But in any case, this has been the very first episode of Q and K Talks Wrestling, title pending because I have a better title, but I'm gonna have to write it down and run it by Key. But in any case, I have been your boy QuaMonstarG. Per the usual, if you like what you have seen and or heard, make sure you like, comment, hit that subscribe button, then hit that notify bell to know when I go live with a brand new video. Key, do you have any socials that they can follow you on?
Absolutely. You guys can follow me at Kerosene Lannister. It's all together. KERSEILANNISTER. You will see wrestling rants, K-pop rants, random rants, and screenshots of my group chat losing brain cells. But that's neither here nor there.
Yarp yarp. And per the usual, I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the love and support. This has been QuaMonstarG, and I will see you later. Peace. Safe. Peace.
Bye.